Okay, so if you are an active duty service member or even a veteran for that matter, and you are at the place where you are considering foreclosure, I need you to stop, take a second, watch this video in its entirety, and make sure that you have some of the most important resources you are ever going to need if you're facing financial difficulty. Okay, so why is this really important and why this particular video on this particular day? Well, I just left a veteran's home where he was facing foreclosure and was like, it's over, like who cares, it's done, whatever. But the problem is, after we sat down and really started talking through things, we realized what he really was losing wasn't just his home and a few years of bad credit. It was the years of equity he had built into the home. It was the stability he was providing for his family. It was the future ability to buy a home and how soon that would actually be. Not to mention the loss of some of the access to one of the best advantages we have from a realtor service, and that's his VA home loan. But stay tuned, we're going to talk about it. Now, the good news is there are a number of options that we have that are for us, but I want to make sure I break them down each individually for this video. All right, listen, so this might sound like the craziest thing, and maybe this is not the right time for a story time, but I can tell you, as someone who has, at one point or other, in building this mega conglomerate with zero support and zero guidance, I can tell you there have been times where I have personally been behind on bills and had to get those dreaded bill collector phone calls. And one of the things I've noticed in a lot of the homeowners that I've talked to, or the ones that I've helped get out of foreclosure, is that they just stop answering the phone. They don't want to hear from the collectors. They think everyone is judging them. And having been there myself, I can humbly agree with them. It is one of the most embarrassing, most vulnerable situations in every phone call, especially once you actually are in the foreclosure process and agents and investors are calling you, hey, I heard you're losing your home. Nothing makes you feel better than getting those phone calls, but they're gonna keep coming. So what can we do? Well, the simplest and easiest thing to do is just answer them. A lot of people don't realize that just by simply engaging with the loan servicer, there are a number of safeties and things you could implement just in that first phone call alone. For most of you that aren't aware of this, there are programs like the forbearance program, where if you are facing a very specific financial difficulty, they will allow you to put so many months of your mortgage on the back end. Now, you will still owe the interest for those periods, but it actually stays you not having to make a mortgage payment for, let's just say, 6 months to a year. That's 6 months to a year, let's just say 6 months, at an average here in San Diego of $3,000 a month is $18,000 in savings to catch up on other bills, student loan payments, car payments, paying our utility bills, getting our business back afloat. There are so many things that can happen, and that one simple phone call can change so much. I actively know a bunch of veterans that I've talked to in the past 6 or 7 months or so that have actually done just that and have now been able to make changes in their financial situation because they did exactly what I said. They called the bank, they talked to the bank, and they did in fact ask for forbearance. So this is going to be maybe a little special for you. Honestly, I usually research some of the videos that I talk about a little bit at least to see if it's something that everybody already knows or it's even something people found useful. And one of the things I was surprised about for a lot of the videos that I researched that specifically talked about foreclosures was that no one ever mentioned going to talk to the VA. You do know that they don't just focus on helping you acquire the home. They actually stick around for a lot longer than that, much like your agent if you choose the right one. One of the biggest misconceptions is obviously that the VA disappears. Once you buy a home, they're no longer involved, and that couldn't be further from the truth, especially with some of the new laws and regulations that have been implemented in just this last 2-3 years. So I got to definitely tell you about those. So if you didn't know, the VA actually has an entire VA loan guarantee division, like an entire team of people whose jobs is I say that 10 times fast. An entire division whose job it is to actually service veterans to help them not lose their homes. Now keep in mind, you are not paying them and they are not your loan servicer, so you still want to keep in touch with them. But if you reach out to these folks, you have access to meeting folks like your VA loan technician. Their entire job, much like some of the agents you might work with, is to make sure that you are very much fully aware of every option available to you before things start getting bad. And I'm going to reference that piece at the last part of this video, so definitely stick around for that because there's a big number of things we can do before, and I want to make sure we're talking about those. Now, if you are wondering who your VA loan technician is, I probably should have put this in section 1, right? Answer your phone calls, but also check your mail. Odds are after 61 days in default, you are typically automatically assigned a VA loan technician, and that is the person you'll reach out to that can help you weigh through your options to see which one is the best for you. Now, this is something relatively new, and that is the partial claim program. Yes, there are new programs coming out all the time to help veterans. Let's talk about it. So, in certain situations, your loan technician will tell you all about them. You can actually do a trial payment period where they'll help you make a certain number of payments, or they'll require that you make a certain number of payments. If you can make those payments successfully, winning or surpassing the trial, then they will actually make the back-owed mortgage payments for you. Now, that money isn't free, so let's make sure we're not, telling anybody that there's free money. The truth is they are going to make sure they get their money back, but that small trial period helping you reset that clock on a potential foreclosure could be huge, especially if they're covering those back-owed payments, so you can feel a little bit more comfortable and breathe a little bit lighter every single 1st and 15th. Now, the important thing to realize with the partial claim program is not everyone will qualify, okay? So don't think just because you saw it in this video that you're going to go call the VA and say, hey, partial claim me, Terrence said I'm good. That doesn't necessarily play out that way. A lot of you need to still make sure that you are keeping in contact with your loan servicer and the VA to see if that's something you can do. If you do try it though, and you do successfully get it, or something comes up bad, make sure you leave me a comment down below. I'd love to know more about your process and how things went for you as you were navigating that space. And before we go into the next session, this is exactly why I try to tell you guys, make sure before we get too far along in this process, make sure you're either reaching out to myself or some agent that you know that specializes in foreclosures or really fully understands this process before you settle into just, I'm just going to foreclose, or God forbid, short sale, but we're not going to get, that's a whole different video. But the most important thing is that you realize that the earlier we get ahead of this, the more tools we have access to help save you from foreclosure. So now, before we even assume we're out of options, we now have some steps. We're going to answer the phone, we're going to check our mail, and we're going to contact the VA to see if we can do anything option-wise to help us save our home. Then after all else fails, then what? The number one thing that I'd recommend you do is actually sell before you have the foreclosure. Now, you would be surprised, I mean this deathly seriously, you would be surprised by the number of people I talk to who have no idea that even though you owe years of back-owed mortgage payments, that you can still sell your home. And while yes, the principal balance is still owed and you still owe all that interest, you could save yourself in a variety of different ways, catching up on other car payments, catching up on other bills, and if the equity is great enough, even putting yourself in a good, stable situation, either moving into a new home that you can rent, or even maybe paying off something with cash if you have enough equity. Obviously, if you live in California, you probably do, because equity is crazy high here. And this kind of brings me to one of my points where when I meet a seller who's actively going through foreclosure, I'll be honest with you, I do kind of come off a little bit more frank after we've examined all the options. I still find we're in limbo land. The advice I typically tell the sellers are this: you're gonna sell this house one way or the other. Either your agent's gonna sell it or the judge is gonna sell it. The only difference is the judge sells it, you get nothing. So sell it with somebody, or nobody. Sell it for some owner, whatever works. Now, there is always another option, and that is called short selling. So I know I kind of gave a little bit of a teaser as to why I don't like those. And if some of you don't know, let me explain what short selling is. Essentially, if I owe $400,000 on a mortgage and I intend to sell my home because it didn't appreciate, or it's in need of repairs, or whatever the case is, I just want out of it, then anything below $400,000 would be considered a short sale. Now, that doesn't mean you have to short sell your home, but here's how that would work. If my home is worth $400,000 and let's say commissions, fees, closing costs, everything are 5%, but my loan balance is 5%, which really means at the closing table, I need to bring $420,000, 20 grand to pay off the closing costs, fees, agent commissions, the whole nine, and then $400,000 to pay off the mortgage and pay off the principal, and there was no short sale. Yes, you could sell your home for less than the principal balance and still avoid a short sale. It's very doable. I just broke it down for you, now you know. Now, here's what I do recommend, and here's why. I know some people in the comments may be like, why would I want to do that? If I'm going to lose the home, why pay money to leave the home that I'm going to lose when I could just bug on out? Well, if you are a veteran or active duty service member who was utilizing their VA loans, you're going to want to listen up. When you have a foreclosure, you are going to lose a portion of your entitlement that the VA used to cover your home. Now, how much of it is going to depend on how much the bank gets back and how much the VA actually has to pay the lender. But let's just say it's the full thing, just to make this video super simple. If you bought a $400,000 home, where you're finding that in San Diego, I'll never know. But if you bought a $400,000 home, about $100,000 your entitlement was used. If the VA ends up losing $100,000 your entitlement, that is $100 grand you will never have back. Never have back. So what that means is that if you were to attempt to utilize your VA loan again, which you can, I'll put that in a video if I have shot it here. If I haven't, then you'll have to stick around and like and subscribe to find the next videos. But let's say you want to utilize your VA benefits later. Well, you don't have full entitlement. So even if your credit was great and everything looked good, in order for you to receive your full entitlement back, you would have to pay over $100,000 in cash to have that entitlement restored. That's a lot of cash. Maybe I just get a conventional loan, right? Depending on the cost of the home. The point is being mindful of exactly how a short sale can impact you both on credit as well as your entitlements if you are active duty or service members. That is something you want to pay attention to. Now again, I'm going to make sure I say it one more time at the very end so nobody can say I didn't say it. Yes, you can in fact save yourself from a foreclosure and still sell under value. There are other things like the deed in lieu of foreclosure and as well as bankruptcy. Now bankruptcy I'm going to very much specifically avoid because I don't want to make it sound like I'm giving legal advice, because we all know I'd get in trouble if I did that. But if you call me, I might tell you some experiences some other folks have had. But no, I always connect you with some of the attorneys that I've got, some of the best attorneys I've ever met here in San Diego to help you navigate either the bankruptcy process or hell, even the foreclosure process. But a deed in lieu simply is exactly like it sounds. Hey bank, I'm going to give you back the deed to this home. I'm going to bounce. Just take the home, and it still damages your credit just as bad, but you don't get the public record aspect of damage. If you've ever lost your home, then you know what I'm talking about. Or if you've ever had a collection, you know what I'm talking about. It's that little spot where it says public data, and they can see, hey, this person had a foreclosure on their record 5 years ago. Boom, that's where it's bad. So now while deed in lieu can reduce the cost and the time and the stress that you're dealing with over the foreclosure process, it's important to remember it still has consequences. So don't think that just because you gave the deed in lieu that you are getting off scot-free and there's never going to be anything else on your record. There will be, unfortunately. And to keep it really quick, I just want to make sure I touch on this one more time. If you are getting notices, letters, emails, phone calls, text messages, answer them. I know it sounds crazy, and I know, God knows I know that it is the toughest thing to do is answer a call from somebody you know is calling to get money, and you really do believe they're going to laugh at you when they hang up the phone. But the truth is that answering those phones and responding to those letters and emails, that's probably the best thing you can do to, maybe get ahead of this process and actually reduce the stress by answering the phone by dodging them. And the beauty is you guys know that you do not have to do this alone. As a licensed agent, I do have access to attorneys that help with foreclosure processes, probate attorneys, estate planning. I mean, I literally have a ton of resources, all of which that can help you guys navigate that process, saving you time, stress, and energy. And because they know a lot of people that I work with are also veterans, maybe we save some money too. But the goal is, before we focus on what avenue and what steps you should take, we want to make sure we know all of our options available to us before we make the most educated decision. So I think the thing I need to make sure that you know is, even though I've sat across from so many different homeowners who all kind of felt that foreclosure was inevitable, some of them ended up selling their homes for lots of money. Some of them even took the deed in lieu because they just couldn't handle the stress. I've even had a couple that have gone the short sale route because they just really need to get out of it. It's important to note the biggest mistake in this process is not falling behind, right? Everybody's one bill away from falling behind anyway. It's making sure that you are aware of the options that you have to help you get out of the hole when you get there. So with that said, if you are a veteran or active duty service member, and right now as you're watching this video, you see this is my situation and I would love to talk to Terrence privately, in the description down below there is a discovery call link. Feel free to click that, schedule time with me. Let's talk through your individual situation, come up with the options we need to help you navigate this process and save you tons of stress and tons of time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stick around. Can't wait to see more. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe too. I'm watching you.